Hey guys, we are back once again for another exciting year of the Premier League. We are less than 1 week away from the opening fixture. The only thing that excites me more than the Premier League is Fantasy Premier League. And so, as a two-time champion of my six-person fantasy draft, I am back again for another year of my tips. But before we get into the draft, which for me is 2 days away, I'm going to play the game of selecting players with the $100 million threshold. And so we're just going to get right into it. Normally, if you recall, I play a 3-4-3 typically. And I don't invest a lot of money in my defense. Now, obviously, that changed a little bit last year with the Liverpool defense having such a strong season. But I'm going to stick to my guns here. We'll start with a goalkeeper. And for the first week of the season, I'm going to go with Lloris at Tottenham. The only reason why I'm doing this is because of his fixture. Tottenham opens with Aston Villa, and I think that's a good fixture for Hugo, and so I'm going to select him there. Now, if you recall from seasons past, I never invest more than $10 million in my goalkeeper or goalkeepers, and so I'm going to go ahead and do the backup goalie Button from Brighton. And if you look, the interesting thing about this is he is 25% of owners have him right now in this session. And so interesting that other folks are only spending that level of money on their goalkeepers, having one good starter and then the weak backup. My starter for the entire season is hopefully going to be De Gea. After week one, I'll probably switch out Hugo. But with De Gea's opening fixture of Chelsea, I'm going to steer clear of him this first week and go with the safer pick of Lloris. Speaking of the defense, like I said earlier, I don't invest too much of my salaries into defense. Probably going to need one of these Liverpool players, but $7 million for a defender is a pretty steep price. So I'm going to go ahead and take Virgil van Dijk here and save the extra $500,000 on him. Interestingly enough, 45% own him right now. So it looks as if there's a lot of other people grabbing the Liverpool defenders as well. Sticking with defense, again, with my 3-4-3 structure, at the $6 million level, that's really the next highest level I would want to play in. Grabbing one of the Chelsea defenders is always a good idea. But for me, Lucas Digne is a play here off of value. He is 26% owned. But if you look at the opening fixtures for Everton through the first 10 weeks of the season, only Man City is in the red with a difficult fixture. The rest of them, Everton has a pretty easy run to start the season. So I'm going to go ahead and grab Lucas there. And then I'm not going to invest much more than $5 million in my other defenders. At the $5.5 million level, I really like PVA, Peter Van Aanholt. So I'm going to go ahead and throw him in here. And that's probably going to be my three strongest defenders. Also at the $5.5 million level, the former Crystal Palace player, now over at Man U. I hesitate to have, like I said, I'm going to go with De Gea weeks 2 and on, and I hesitate to have two Man U's back there on the backside. But I do think the Man U defense is going to be a little stronger. And if the rumors that are coming in hold with Harry Maguire showing up, then I think that's going to really fortify the back. Not willing to spend on Harry right now. We'll see where he shakes out. And so that's going to be the 3 or 4 defenders that I play. I'm going to leave the other defender spot open right now to see what value I have left the rest of the way. I'm going to skip my midfield for now and jump down to forwards. I think there's some value to be had here in the forward position, and I'll tell you why. So obviously you have Aubameyang, and with the addition of Pepe, I don't think that's a bad pick. I really don't. but I don't see that value going up tremendously off that $11 million mark. Aguero makes me nervous with the playing time and the injuries history, so I'm going to steer clear of him. The value I'm going to go for my main forward is Jamie Vardy. I think he had an off year last year. I think that in the off season, Leicester really improved their midfield. And I'm going to grab a Leicester midfielder here in just a minute. But I think Vardy's the play there. I'm going to go ahead and grab Josh King at the $6.5 million level. I think that is a very good value there. King had a great season last year. The opening fixtures for Bournemouth are as well very, very reasonable. Maybe not quite to the Everton level, but certainly a soft opening fixtures where you can get some value there. And so my last forward in my 3-4-3 is going to be somewhat of a stretch. I like Sebastian Haller coming over into the Premier League, and so I'm going to go ahead and grab him. And I don't think a lot of people are going to know this name yet because he is new to the league. But taking over at the West Ham forward role, I think this is a very good pick. It's a differential that I'm willing to take the risk here. 5% owned. I can move some things around and easily grab a Rashford or someone like that. But I'm willing to take the chance here on Sebastian Haller. With my midfield, let's jump over to the midfield. I have $44 million left to spend on my midfield and one remaining defender. So actually, let's go ahead and grab a bench level defender at the $4.5 million level. I think the West Ham defense is always good for a few clean sheets. So if we get Diop here, 7 clean sheets last season and 1 goal, I'm okay with that sitting on my defense, on my bench. So that leaves $39.5 million for my 5 midfielders, and I think I can get that done relatively safely. So let's jump over here to midfield, and let's start with the discussion of your top 3. Probably you're going to need to have one of these, Salah, Sterling, and Mane. I'm just not necessarily willing to jump out there and grab Salah. He is arguably the best player in the league. But for the savings of the $500,000, to take Sterling here, Sterling plays more of a forward role. That really gives me 4 forwards to look at. And also, it may be my only Man City player. So I'm going to go Sterling here. The next level, the next tier down, Gylfi Sigurdsson at Everton. Again, the fixtures to open the season, same as Lucas in the defense. I think this is a good pick here. And so those are going to be my 2 primary midfielders to start the year. I have $19.5 million remaining. Earlier I mentioned the improving midfield at Leicester. And I think there's a pick to be had here at the $6.5 million level, and that's Perez. This is a very good pickup for Leicester. It's a very good differential for your squad. 12% owned, coming over from Newcastle. And so I think this is going to be another differential that I'm willing to take the risk on. That leaves $13 million left for 2 defenders, and there's a lot of ways you can play this. So if we go to the $7.5 million level, just to start with, you can grab a Frazier, Milivojevic, David Silva, even Zaha backing up from Crystal Palace off the forward line into the midfield role. These are all good picks. I'm going to make a stretch here. I'm going to jump over to Chelsea, and I'm going to grab Christian Pulisic. This is going to be another one of those differentials that I may come off of after the first few weeks. I know they open with Man United. Then they have a softer run for the next 3 or 4 weeks. If by week 5 this is not panning out, obviously by week 5 the season may be over if it's a really disaster. But if by week 4 or 5 this is not panning out, there's a very quick switch you can do here at this dollar level to grab again, if I back up to the $7.5 million level, grabbing any one of these players to switch out Pulisic, but for the first few weeks of the season, this is the risk I'm going to take. Leaves me with $5.5 million for my final defender. I have someone in mind here, and that's MacArthur. So if you look at this, James has 3 goals, 7 assists, and 11 clean sheets. Not necessarily real high on having 2 Crystal Palace players in my lineup, but MacArthur's going to sit on my bench most of the time. I like either Wolverhampton player, with Neves probably being the primary, but the fixtures are just too strong in the opening part of the season. And so I'm going to steer clear of the Wolves players, and I'm going to grab MacArthur for my bench. So I'm not going to finalize this team yet, but I think this is the way I'm going to go. I'm going to look at the transactions that occur right up until the deadline before I post this team. Hey, that's it for now. It's a really exciting time of year. Please like and subscribe. The more likes and subscriptions, the more content I'll put out there. The next video I'll put out will probably be about my draft. It's in 2 nights. I'm open to comments and suggestions on what you think of these players. Looking forward to a great season.